Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, my name is Lacey. I make true crime videos. I also do shorts as well here on YouTube. If you are a new subscriber, I just want to say thank you and I'm so glad you believe in me. I won't let you down. I will be doing something different with my channel this month. I've always enjoyed watching people do their makeup while talking about true crime stories. So I'm going to be trying that out today. Don't know how it's gonna go. I'm not a makeup girly, but we're gonna try. There are timestamps at the bottom if you want to skip all this and get to the meat and potatoes. Today's case is really good. But for the month of October, I'll be doing makeup videos and I'm gonna try to upload one every Friday. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Today, we're gonna be talking about a cannibal who walked free. Yes, you heard that right. In 1981, Paris police received a tip about a strange suitcase nearby a quiet park. What they found inside of that suitcase would shake France to its core. A mutilated body with missing parts and a trail that led to a quiet Japanese student who lived just a few blocks away from the crime. His name? Issei Sagawa. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name. I'll tell you that right now. This man was so disturbed, y'all. So disturbed. He wasn't just fascinated by death like most normal serial killers are. No. He believed that eating someone would make them part of you forever. How does someone become like that? Today, we're going back to his childhood, his disturbing fantasies, and the crime the world still cannot understand or wrap their mind around. This is the story of Issei Sagawa, the cannibal who walked free. Issei was born in Kobe, Japan on April 26, 1949. He was born premature and immediately would develop enteritis, which is basically just an inflammation of the small intestine, causing great deals of pain, diarrhea, fatigue, nausea. And Issei was just really a sickly, fragile child. And his body never really fully recovered. He stayed small and physically weak and was just constantly ill throughout his entire childhood. And just the sense of feeling different and inadequate would really become the theme of Issei's life. Like, he was very insecure. And I'm insecure too, but he was very insecure. But Issei wasn't just physically different. No. He was socially isolated and very socially awkward as well. He was extremely shy and introverted, and he didn't want many friends. He didn't care for that. He really just dived so deep into literature and poetry, and that was his focus and his interest, not making friends. But by the time Issei was in first grade, he would already start having cannibalistic desires. He would get caught just staring at his female peers and his classmates. And I'm sure like the girls just thought he had a crush or whatever. And, that's normal for most kids. You have a little crush, you're gonna stare. But he wasn't looking at them with desire. He was looking at them with hunger. He was looking at them like dinner. So from first grade, he definitely started developing these cannibalistic desires. He started wondering what his classmates tasted like. Really just wondering what it would be like to eat them. And as he got older, the thoughts only deepened and darkened. He started having dreams of being boiled alive, like he was in this big pot. And he said that once he would look up, through the steam and all the veggies, he'd see a demon. His words, not mine. So clearly, Issei's struggling with something mentally, first of all. And not only that, he's a very young boy at this point. So for him to be feeling like that so early, I feel like it was just bound for him to do something like what he did. And these weren't just passing thoughts. These were obsessions. Violent, cannibalistic, and constant. But cannibalism wasn't the only sick desire that Issei had. No, because Issei liked to have sexual relations with the family dog. And though he dreamed of having relations with women and doing things sexually with women, he just always felt inadequate. Told you, it was the theme of his life. He felt he was just too small, too frail, and too unwanted for anyone to want to sleep with him, basically, because that was the main thing he was worried about. And his parents, while very wealthy, were not emotionally available. They kind of just felt like he was in the way of things. Please trust the process. He rarely got their attention or their affection, and he tried so hard to like make them proud and, you know, do things that they would pat him on the back for, but he never really got it. But with that combo, the social rejection, you know, the isolation, his parents not giving him any attention or affection, I can see, I'm definitely not excusing anything he's done, but I can see how that would deepen his fantasies and how he would only get deeper within them, because, I mean, he doesn't have not even a friend that he can like, because, you know, you get into something, you're going to tell your friends about it. And, you know, maybe had he had someone, he could have been like, hey, you know, don't you want to know what people taste like? And they would have been like, no, dude. And they could have schooled him or, you know, maybe shamed him or even gotten him some mental help. But no, he didn't have anyone. It was just Issei and Issei's head. So, but jump forward to 28 years old, Issei decides to move to Paris from Japan, which is a huge move, by himself to get his PhD in literature. I just want to say that's a huge change for anyone, but let alone doing it by yourself and moving from where they speak one language to where they speak a whole nother. But I mean, he is getting his PhD in literature. Who knows? Even though this was such a big change, nothing really seemed to change for Issei. He still felt the same. He still had the same desires. He was still the same awkward, obsessive little weirdo. Just being blunt here. Only now, he's alone in a new country where no one's watching him. And soon, Issei could not escape his desires any longer. In his Paris apartment, Issei began stalking women. And he also began to hire sex workers but not to have sex with them, to study them, to imagine what it would be like to consume them. Honestly. And he was also studying how many drinks it would take for them to loosen up. How long does he need to stand there? Really, he was working his game plan up for when he got someone in his apartment that he really wanted. I think with the sex workers, he was more or less just test in the field. And one day he met that woman that he wanted to take home and consume. And that is unfortunately today's victim, Renee Hartevelt, a smart, beautiful Dutch woman. She was also a student at the same college that Issei attended. And a few things to note about Renee is that, number one, she was very intelligent, obviously. And number two was she was just very kind. Everyone that had something to say about Renee just spoke on what a nice, sweet person she was. And a lot of people described her as the type of person that people are just drawn to. Just a very smart, sweet, kind girl who was unaware of the fact that she had just befriended a killer. Now, Issei and Renee built up a very basic friendship. It was mostly surrounding literature and just school stuff. I mean, they weren't besties or anything, but they did generate a basic friendship. It also didn't help that Renee was very beautiful. She was 5'10", fluent in many languages, and she just represented everything that Issei wasn't. He really wanted to be her. But to Issei, she wasn't a friend at all. She was dinner. And on June 11th, 1981, Issei worked up the courage to invite Renee to his apartment. She sat at his desk reading poetry aloud. He's feeding her drinks, of course. He's studied this. He knows how many it takes at this point. And they're kind of having a good time, whatever. She's just there really to learn. And after Issei noticed that Renee was more just like open and relaxed, he started to make sexual advances at her. And obviously, Renee rejects him because number one, that's not what she's there for. And number two, she's not attracted, buddy. And after a couple of advances and him still not getting the hint, Renee's like, yeah, I think it's time to go. So she starts, telling him, all right, I think I'm gonna go. And that is when Issei, from behind her, mind you, like the coward he is, raises his rifle and shoots Renee from behind, killing her instantly. I totally messed up right there and used the blush part of my beauty blender, so I'm gonna redo that part. But anyway, you can only guess what he did over the next 2 days. He began taking bits and chunks off of her and just eating her raw. And after performing necrophilia on her body and, just having the time he really wanted to have, he decides, I'm tired, it's time to go to bed. So he takes Renee's body to bed with him and performs more necrophilia with her deceased body. Like, you're so disgusting. Oh, this guy pisses me off. Like, he's so cocky, first of all. The next morning, he wakes up with the plan to dispose of her body. But after he gets up, he realizes that, in his words, the body was still good because it didn't have a smell yet and it didn't have bugs around it. So he could still use it for his own sick personal use. And that's what he did. He used her body the second day for more of his own sick pleasures. And he does speak of all of this in his book. But the way that he talks about his actions, he's not sorry for what he did at all. And he blatantly shows that. He would describe his actions not with horror or remorse, but with satisfaction. Like he's just describing how he scored the winning touchdown. Because to him, he just fulfilled a fantasy that he's had since childhood. So he's on cloud 9, really. By the 3rd day, Renee's body does start to smell. And that's when he decides it's time to dispose of it. So he comes up with a plan, a poor one, mind you, to dispose of Renee's body. This would be his utter downfall. I know we're ready to hear about it. So his first course of action is to start chopping up Renee's body. And he does exactly that. And he gets her into 2 suitcases. And these 2 suitcases are a little important, so remember them. After he gets them into the suitcases, he thinks, these are heavy. How am I gonna transport these by myself, because he doesn't have a car and he's very small. He's like 4'7", and he's very fragile and weak as well. So he's comes up with a plan to have a cab drive him, pick him up and drive him to the destination in which he wanted to dispose of Renee's body. Idiot. So the cab gets there and Issei comes out with his 2 suitcases. Okay, nothing crazy. But he's having literally the hardest time with the suitcases that the cab driver offers to help him put them in the trunk. And he lets him, like, you idiot. Like, clearly you wanted to be caught, and I'm glad because you deserve, well, no. Anywho. And the cab driver even jokes with Issei and tells him and asks him, oh my gosh, these are so heavy. Do you have a dead body in here? I just know Issei was shitting bricks that entire car ride, because what do you mean you called someone to help you dispose of a body, put the body in their trunk? What? He finally gets there and he's getting the suitcases out of the trunk and he starts taking them up a hill. Okay. So he's just pulling these 2 large, heavy, random suitcases up this hill. Mind you, it is broad daylight, hunty. Broad daylight. And he's just at the park with these random suitcases. Like, oh my gosh. So he gets super tired and decides, you know what? I need to take a break. And he sits down beside the suitcases. And he's looking at the sunset. And he just gets overwhelmed with the beauty of it all. And he gets so overwhelmed and distracted that he doesn't even realize that there's been a man watching him this whole time. Getting out of the cab, grabbing the suitcases, struggling with them up the long hill, and then sitting there and admiring the sunset. So this man finally decides to approach Issei, and he just asks him, like, hey man, are these your suitcases? Like, what, like, are these yours? And Issei just says nope, and he takes off. And so the guy's like, what the fuck? So he opens the suitcases. I think he kind of knew to open the suitcases because of Issei's weird, stupid behavior. And once he did, he starts screaming, murderer! Murderer! Because he opens the suitcase and finds a mutilated body inside. Mind you, somehow, some way, Issei he makes it home from this. He doesn't get called on by the police, and he makes it home. Okay, cool. Good for you, friend. Good for you. And you know what he does when he gets home? Oh, baby, you know what he does? He makes recipes with Renee's body. The flesh from Renee's body, I'm having a hard time finding my brushes, but the flesh from Renee's body, he started cooking it and eating off it for the next couple days. But the police were on his trail, thank God, because obviously the people at the park had something to say about the strange man carrying the suitcase that they later discovered was a dead body inside. And I'm very 2016 makeup, by the way. And they start trying to track down the original buyer of these two suitcases. But more tips come in because remember, it was broad daylight when Issei decided to dispose of her body at the park. So a lot of people called in saying they saw a taxi cab drop off a strange man at the park that day. So they immediately start tracking down cab drivers. They're calling every cab driver in the city. And finally, they do get a hold of Issei's cab driver. And they ask him about the suitcases. And you know what he says? He says, yes, I remember him. He told me those suitcases were full of books. So after this, they immediately are able to track down idiot Issei. And when they get to his apartment, he immediately confesses. Which is like, okay, like, thanks for confessing, I guess, but why didn't you just turn yourself in, like, after all the dumb shit you did, and then, like, you just brought them to your house just to confess? Like, you're dumb. But here is where justice failed and let a killer walk free, because the trial for Issei and what he had done would never take place. After numerous psych evals, French psychiatrists declared Issei Sagawa mentally and legally insane. And after serving only 2 years, instead of facing trial, he was committed to a mental institution. Did we forget that Issei has wealthy parents? And although they never gave a shit about him or prevented any of these things from happening, they decided, oh, it's time to intervene. And soon after, he was deported back to Japan. I literally started recording and telling you guys the story, and it wasn't recording. So this side's already done. But while in Japan, Issei couldn't be charged with the crime from France because France wanted nothing to do with Issei or the crime. And when Japan requested the court documents, France refused to send them. And without those, they could not charge Issei with anything, really. Whatever. And just like that, the little weirdo cannibal kid walks free. Instead of living the rest of his life in shame and hiding, he embraced his newfound infamy. Actually, he loved it. He went on to write books, do numerous interviews, and even became a celebrity food reviewer. That's right. Yeah, I said that. A cannibal reviewing food. He would also, in some of his interviews, describe what human flesh tasted like. The world called him the We're gonna fix that in a minute. The cannibal who got away with murder, and he loved it. He ate that right up. For decades, Issei openly lived in Japan after what he did. He did claim that life wasn't all as easy as everyone thought it would be for the famous cannibalistic killer. No. He claimed he was shunned unemployable, constantly ill. It's just like, okay, you had those issues before the ill, so like, you were literally already shunned, constantly ill, and all these things before. So don't try to act like that made it hard for you. And after suffering a stroke, Issei was left fully dependent on others. It's like, if the justice system won't do it, I'm glad you ended up that way somehow. On the brink of death, he still spoke to reporters, expressing little to no remorse for what he did. He died November 2022 at the age of 73. To live a long, free life, mind you, when Renee was killed so young. The story of the cannibal who walked free. Issei Sagawa. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Follow along for more. There will be more videos like this in the near future. You guys keep safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.